All right, folks, with the download button on the Technology Geek podcast. This is our 61st podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. And as always, you can find all of our shows at thetechnologygeek.org, our podcast at podcast.thetechnologygeek.org. But we have a very special treat for you today. We have a guest. I am not doing the show solo today. We have a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, VoIP expert, security guy like myself, Security Plus. His list just goes on and on and on. If there's anybody better in this technology world than me, it's him. And we have Howard on the show. Howard, thank you very much for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
So we had one of the reasons why I had Howard on is he's an expert in VoIP. He works for a company that's what they handle: phones, cloud, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things he had today for us is he has let's talk about our VoIP diagram, which I'm going to include in the show notes. But Howard, if you could tell us a little bit about that diagram for the people that have pulled it up, if you could tell us what's going on there, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, Brandon. So as everybody knows, voice over IP is the latest, greatest craze. The lines are getting blurred between your PBX system and your network, and it's all starting to mesh together. And that's kind of going to present a problem. Especially as we're moving into the whole Internet of Things, and everybody's got everything on the Internet. And what they're finding is voice quality starting to suffer as a result. You've got a pipe coming from your ISP, whatever it is, and you've got all these devices connected to it, whether it be computers, camera systems, phones. Now I'm hearing about Wi-Fi doorbells, and soon Wi-Fi coffee makers, and your fridge is going to talk Wi-Fi. All these things are taking up bandwidth. And there seems to be no segmentation, no nothing. And everything is fighting with everything else for control. Everything wants to use your entire pipe. So one of the most common things my company does, and it's something I recommend, it's something we recommend for security, subdividing your network into something called a virtual LAN or a VLAN. What we would do is carve up your network, allocating certain, we'll say, segments for certain devices. So on my diagram, I broke it up into 3 VLANs. VLAN 1 for voice, VLAN 1 for data, VLAN 2 for voice, and VLAN 3 for camera systems. Camera systems could be replaced by anything in the world of the Internet of Things. That could be your Wi-Fi doorbell. That could be your guest Wi-Fi. That could be your coffee maker that connects to Wi-Fi, your fridge, what have you. And then the 3 shall meet. You're subdividing your network. So the idea is that with segmentation, it will secure your network, and it's also allowing for better traffic. So let's say somebody on VLAN 1 is streaming Netflix. They're not going to stomp all over the voice connection. You'll still be able to dial out, and your voice quality won't suffer. As well as your Netflix won't suffer from somebody viewing the camera system. So the idea of keeping things separated will not only help your bandwidth, it's also a good idea for security to keep them on different networks. Separated by a firewall. One of the firewalls that I would recommend to customers is usually a sonic wall. I find it's easiest to subdivide up into VLANs. Each VLAN is firewalled. They're separated, so if a hacker were to break into your network, they wouldn't get at everything. So assuming they broke through, they found a vulnerability in the camera system, okay, great. They compromise your cameras. They can see what you're doing, but they can't get access to your servers. They won't be able to hack your PBX and vice versa. That's basically what I've got going on in my diagram. One of the other things is something called QoS, or quality of service, that's recommended. That gives voice traffic a little bit of a priority on a network for better quality communication. And one of the mistakes we commonly see is people don't realize that everything should be separated. I have seen the voice existing on the same data as a network, and then the voice quality suffers. So that's basically what my diagram is. This is just the most basic level of how you would set up a network. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on how your network's set up, how your wiring is set up. Sometimes you're not going to be capable of having separate switches for everything based on your budget, in which case we would have to look into seeing if your switches can do multiple VLANs on different ports. It gets more complicated as time progresses. This is just your basic run-of-the-mill. Here's the easiest way to create a network.
Now, Howard, let me ask you a question, because I know we're gonna get questions about it. Say you have a fax machine or something like that. Is that possible to go through VoIP, or are you still using POTS lines for stuff like that nowadays?
You're better off using the POTS lines. You'll have better reliability in the fax machine. Because going over the commodity internet may not always be the best thing. Now, they have what's called fax servers these days, which is a central location, some computer somewhere connected to a modem. It's replacing the fax machines, and then you can access your fax over your network. Still need some sort of dial tone service.
So now I know we've talked about it a few times, and you were talking about how Skype now is going to be, or possibly could be, replacing PBX over time. Could you go into that? How does it work? Stuff like that.
Well, so Microsoft has now decided to move into the telco world, and they want to connect to the public switch telephone network. And to do so, they're using what's called Skype for Business, which is slightly different than the Skype you all have at home. It doesn't have a lot of the lockup issues. It's just a more robust system. It's based off of an older system called Link. Some of you remember, it connects back to Exchange. And it can be used as its own PBX system, eventually replacing your PBX. Right now, it's still in the early stages. It just got rolled out, I want to say in December officially. There's a handful of providers, Polycom, Mitel, and Cisco support it. And it's basically, it's a soft phone, is what it comes down to being. No more big PBXs. The only downside to using Skype for business as your PBX is it's going to go over the commodity internet, and you're still subject to bandwidth restrictions. If they do make Skype endpoints, again, Mitel, Polycom, Cisco will make Skype endpoints. You can plug those into a different VLAN, probably with a PoE switch, point them out on the network, and you'd probably be okay.
Now, the other question I have, and I know I've done some research into this. You're getting a lot of customers that are saying to me, what's the difference between going with a PBX or like an UMA system or a Magic Jack? Can you explain what the difference is between going with those you see maybe on television advertising or something like what you're talking about?
Well, what you see on television is designed really for the home user. It's not really designed for commercial entities. It's not going to handle multiple extensions. It's not going to handle massive amount of calling. What it's designed for is to replace your Verizon connection, your MCI, AT&T, whoever your local telco may be. Where the PBX comes in is you can take whatever's coming in from, say, from your provider, your Verizon or whoever, and it'll take that line and it'll carve it up for you. So you could say, 555-1234 comes into my business. Now, I want this number to, when people dial this number, I want it to ring extension 1, 2, and 5. And only those phones will ring. That's handled through the PBX. The PBX can also nowadays interface with email, where you can now get an email, should you be away from your desk, indicating you have a voicemail, and you would have the voice transcription of that email, of that voice message, stored as a WAV file. So basically, you check your email. Oh yeah, someone left me a voicemail message. Who called me? You can hear the whole phone call without having to be at your desk.
Sort of like what Google does with, say, their Android system, where it'll transcribe the message for you.
It won't transcribe it. You're getting an actual wave. I would imagine that you could get a transcription. I don't know how well it would work. I have seen Vonage try to transcribe things. It doesn't look pretty. You're better off listening to the actual voice message as it comes through in a WAV file or MP3 file or whatever the phone system may give you. The other nice thing about having a PBX is music on hold. So that when you put a customer on hold, they don't hear dead air. They can hear an advertisement. They can hear the local radio station, whatever. Something other than dead air. Whereas with these Magic Jacks and your Vonages, you're not getting any of that. You're just giving the customer dead air. So it's better for business if you had a PBX.
Now, the other question I have is, too, I noticed that you see a lot of companies say if you load the app on your phone, you don't necessarily have to be at your desk. It'll actually ring the actual, like if you have an iPhone, you can load the app, and then you're not at your desk.
Twinning.
Like what's it called?
That's correct. Twinning.
Twinning. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Twinning. Like having a twin. Basically, it's mirroring your phone. So you know how we can set up a RAID array where two hard drives mirror each other, do the same thing?
Correct.
The app is doing the same thing. It's acting as if it was your phone. So when your phone rings, it rings. So where that's good is if you're a sales guy and you're on the road 300 days a year, and you only go into the office every so often just to fill out paperwork, you don't miss anything. You're out, let's say, driving around on the turnpike. You're going to meet a client. Well, now client calls in, says, okay, I got a problem. I need to change things. You don't miss that call now. You don't have to wait for, oh, I got an email. Who's this? No. Your phone rings. Okay. I look at the app. Oh, my phone's ringing. It's Bob. I'm supposed to meet Bob in 2 hours. Yes, Bob. What's going on? Hey, I got to reschedule this meeting. I'm stuck in traffic. Okay, so I'll take my time getting to you. Thank you for letting me know.
I'm
Makes
getting
life just a little bit easier.
I'm getting podcast crashers.
I see this. Apparently, you've got guests.
Yeah, yes. Well, no, they're not guests if they live here, and they're not guests if you're married to them either. You can say hi. The microphone's on.
Hi, Howie.
Hi, Serena.
That's what the editing department is for.
I gathered that.
Yeah. And when I say the editing department, I mean me with the GarageBand service a little bit. Yeah, the app. So the next question I had that I wanted to talk to you about now, what you're talking about, Twin is I believe what you called it. Now Twin is, I guess, a really fancy version of call forwarding for the lesser technical people that listen.
Yeah. Well, it's not really call forwarding. It's simultaneous ringing. They're both ringing at the same time. You can set up call forwarding through the PBX system so that you can have your phone forwarded, or you can have them both ring simultaneously, which is probably the better option. This way, you never miss your call.
Now, you're talking about PBX. I know we have a lot of people out there that are wondering. I mean, obviously they don't run on Windows. They're running on some form of Linux, or they're a appliance or something. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Most of them are appliances. It's pretty rare you have something running on Windows. Those appliances running embedded Linux under the hood. Sometimes Unix, depending on which carrier you're using. Generally, it's proprietary.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's based off. They're all based off. Well, at least Mitel is based off Cent. I'm not sure about Cisco, but at the end of the day, it is a Linux or Unix on the back end.
Now, do you still? I mean, is there a lot of businesses out there that still run on like they have like 3 or 4 or 5 lines coming in from a carrier, and then they have a PBX? I mean, how like we're talking about VoIP right now, but is there customers still out there running analog systems?
There's still customers out there running analog and digital systems. There are customers with POTS lines, plain old telephone lines. They still exist. That's the mom and pop shops where they've got 1 phone line, maybe 2 phone lines coming in from the telco, and maybe they got 4 or 5 phones inside. Then you got customers that are on what's called a PRI, which is a digital line. It's a collection of lines or circuit coming in, much like school districts might have PRIs. Coming in, there's circuit cards from the carrier, which would probably give you 30 or 40 lines coming in. And that connects over to the PBX system. Then, of course, you have the voice over IP going out over the internet to make phone calls. Generally, you need some kind of carrier. If you're going to do VoIP, you would use what's called a SIP trunk provider. It's basically a fancy term for an internet-based phone company.
Oh, so you can't just do a VoIP system then just by getting your Verizon Fios line in and just doing VoIP. You actually do have to have some sort of SIP provider or something then.
Right. Well, MyTelnet Solutions, for example, is a good one. If you have a Mitel system, they sell their own provider. You can connect up. There's generally, if you have a SIP-capable phone system, talk to your phone provider and find out exactly who it recommends. Skype is its own independent system, though. It's its own VoIP system. You're paying Microsoft $40 a month. That gets you Skype, and don't quote me, but I believe 1,000 minutes of talk time.
Now let me ask you another question. Now you're talking about Skype. Now Skype, obviously in the cloud, the mysterious cloud that we always hear about. Now some of these other systems obviously are on site, but now does Mitel or other companies like that, do they offer cloud-based services like Microsoft Skype?
Not yet. I'm sure it's on the horizon. They're still using PBX. The latest thing that I've seen from most PBX providers is they've gotten rid of the appliance in favor of a virtual system. They can do a cloud-based virtual system. I've seen it, but you would need a cloud virtual provider to do it.
Now, the other thing is, too, these companies we're talking about, Mitel, they're in the business, obviously, of selling hardware where Microsoft isn't. That's, I think, part of the problem, too.
Yeah, Microsoft doesn't make their own hardware. Microsoft will point you to one of their partners. So I was at a Microsoft conference pretty recently. They were talking about Skype, and then they brought in Polycom to talk to everybody.
Okay.
Polycom was the partner of the day that they brought in. They said, okay, these are the devices we sell that are compatible with Skype.
Oh, okay. So you're actually buying a Skype ready device then from a vendor. You're not buying the hardware directly from Microsoft then. Okay, I didn't know that either.
So what you're doing is you're buying a service from Microsoft. So you buy the Microsoft Office E3, E5 package, whichever one comes with Skype for Business. And you tell Microsoft, okay, I need X number of licenses. Okay, fine, here's your licenses. Now you have options. You want to put those licenses on a cell phone, on a computer, or a Skype ready device.
Okay, I didn't know that was news to me. I wasn't aware of that. So I assumed you were buying the hardware directly from Microsoft. It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way. They'll point you to to a list of partners. Even you can probably buy through their site, but it's not Microsoft branded hardware. Just like they didn't make their cell phones, Microsoft doesn't make this. They have licensed technology to different partners, and those partners will sell you a device capable of doing what you want to do.
You know, one thing I'm surprised with Microsoft is with that major purchase they just laid out about a couple of years ago for Nokia. I'm really surprised that they're not trying to sell their own phone hardware since they have kind of a manufacturer almost.
Well, you would think, but there's so much competition out there. They'd probably lose their shirt trying to do it.
Well, now, I know you're familiar, obviously, with Mitel. That's predominantly what you work with. What are some other phone providers out there, phone systems out there, if you're looking? I know Mitel I always think of as kind of the Cadillac of it, but I'm sure there's other maybe cheaper systems out there. Maybe not cheaper, but more reasonable.
That depends on what you're looking for. I've worked with Polycom. I've worked with Avaya. I've worked with Cisco. When you go Cisco, that's going beyond Cadillac. You're paying for the power of the name. You're paying for their fancy big screen devices. They're not cheap. I've set up Polycom. I've set up Avaya, Mitel. Mitel has recently purchased Intertel, and there was talk of them possibly purchasing other companies like ShoreTel. It's possibly in the works, but hasn't been confirmed to my knowledge.
Now, I guess Howard, I guess a lot of people really concerned about security nowadays. Obviously,
right.
You watch the news, you see this thing with Juniper, this one hacked, that one hacked. The list just goes on and on and on. But I guess the question is, you hear a lot of securing your computer, antivirus, this and that. But I mean, do people really have to worry about their VoIP traffic? Can somebody really sniff your VoIP traffic and listen to it?
It's difficult to sniff a VoIP traffic, but it's possible they can do something to not necessarily sniff it, but distort it. That goes again back to the whole VLANing thing. You want it segmented off from your data network. This way, somebody can't be sitting on your data network listening in and trying to intercept the voice packets or deflect the voice packets.
We had a guest on a while back that had talked about segmenting their network. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is he had said that a lot of times your data traffic will actually, if you don't segment, will actually stomp on your voice traffic. I'm sure you see that before.
Yeah, I've seen that. I'm dealing with a customer right now where the company I work for is a telco provider, and they have their own IT company. And this customer has decided they wanted to add in to their network 2 Apple TVs running all day long. As you all know, Apple TVs, either I believe 720 or 1080i, high definition. That suddenly, after adding those in, voice quality went down. They get distorted, problems dialing out. And we basically took a look at their network and said, okay, you don't have network segmentation here. Everything's on the same network. We have to break this up. That's the only way this is going to work properly. We tried implementing QoS. It really didn't help matters.
Well,
yes.
Let me ask you that you're talking about segmenting off traffic. I mean, there are ways to do that, even at small businesses. I'm obviously you deal with not only just huge customers, but smaller companies as well. There are ways to do that relatively reasonable, I guess, with hardware. Or, I mean, can you explain a little bit about that?
So yeah, your firewall can generally do it as long as you go commercial grade. The sonic walls, for example, you can set each port to be a different network.
Yeah, I wanted to point out one thing. To cut you off real quick. I mean, if I just when you say commercial grade, we're not talking about like your Walmart routers. I just want to point that out to the listeners.
No, we're not. We're not talking going to Staples or Best Buy and saying I need a router. We're talking getting something designed to be a true firewall, almost an appliance. So again, you have your Cisco's, your Sonic Walls, your Junipers, or whoever. Generally, they have multiple ports on them that you can segment. So if I were to design a network right now, and I would be told, okay, I need voice, I need data, I need cameras. Okay, fine. I would personally set up a switch or multiple switches, depending on quantity, for each network, and then have them plugged into different ports on my firewall. So, I would have a switch or several switches for my data network. All the traffic on the data network is contained. All goes out on one port. Then another switch for the telco equipment. Then another switch for cameras if needed, or the Internet of Things. This way it keeps everything segmented, nothing stomping on anything, and I would have them on different IP schemes too. So, for example, I would have your data set up as, like, say, a 192 network. I might have the cameras on a 172 network, and then the phones on a 10 dot network. Just that would also keep hackers out of things. So, okay, they get into your data network. Yes, maybe they can compromise it through some Windows security hole or whatever.
There's never any of those.
Yeah, let's go with that. They're never going to find the other IP segments unless they figure out how to get into your firewall. So that can always be mitigated if you have a strong password.
Now let me ask you another question. I see a lot of companies that use the phone as a hub. Like, they plug one data jack in an office. They plug the phone in, and then they use the computer through the hub. Now, obviously, it's called a pass-through. Now, they in some situations, they are on the data network. They aren't on the VoIP network. Go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so it depends on how it's set up. You can do what's called port tagging on commercial-grade switches, like your HPs, your Ingenious, your high-end Netgears, your Cisco's, your Avias. You can set it up so that it looks for the traffic and segments it at the port level. That's getting a little more complicated, but if price is a problem, that's how you would do it.
Now, like I said, you also deal with security a lot. I know that. I guess one of the things I do want to talk to you about, because I do want to talk to you about security a little bit, because we have that whole thing with, I think it was Dell we wanted to talk about.
Yes.
But the question I wanted to ask you about is, we're dealing with security. I always hear people, with, oh, your default password for your voicemail is, 1111 or 1234, whatever. Is there any really safe way to secure that, or not really? Because people are always going to make easy passwords.
It starts at the user level. It's the only way to secure it. It's only as secure as your users are. If your users wants to use 12345, they're going to use 12345. You can try to set up your system so that it requires them to change the password every so many days. Then you run into the slight issue of the user saying, hey, I forgot my password. Help. And then they may end up resetting it to 12345 again. So
yeah. Now, and there's not. I don't think there's any. There's no real way for, like, on a computer, if you get your password, you hit reset password, and you get your answer question. There's no real way to reset your password on a phone system besides somebody coming in and doing it for you.
Correct. Somebody has to log in, whether it be a pseudo tech that you have on site that has access to the voicemail system, or you would have to call your telco provider and have them either remote in or send out a tech to reset the password.
Yeah, because I'm assuming some of these systems, VoIP system, you probably can access it over the web, but some of these, systems, like you said, they're still older systems that aren't, internet connected. So you'd have to send somebody physically out. So
depends on the system. Sometimes they can still be dialed into. there are feature codes
I didn't know
where
that.
there are feature codes built in that you can dial in, hit certain commands, let's say, to the phone, like **124, and it might get you someplace, which might allow you to do something. Everything depends on what system you have. So
Okay.
you could dial in, hit the commands, get access to the admin section of the voicemail. Then it'll prompt you to enter to the mailbox. You can go then access that mailbox, clear out the password, reset it to the let's say the default was 111. It would reset it to 111. You hang up, you call them back and say, okay, we dialed in, we reset it to defaults.
I didn't know that was still available yet.
Yeah,
I thought
it's still
something
available.
like that.
I wish it would go away.
Well, it's a security problem. It really, to be technical about it.
It's a security problem. They'd have to know the commands, and they'd have to have a dial-up modem still in their machine. You're only connecting at maybe 800 baud top speed. So the time it would take somebody to try to exploit is not really worth the aggravation.
Kind of makes 56K look like a speed demon.
Absolutely.
So I guess the other question I had is, and I know because I got this email when I said I had something coming out about VoIP. They had asked, Skype, and we talked about this before, but like they were talking about Skype versus like Ring Central or stuff like that. Obviously, both rated commercial grade, but obviously, what's going to come down to is what the quality of service, I guess.
Quality of service,
price,
price and integration. Skype integrates with your Outlook client. Skype integrates with your Office suite. So you need to call somebody in, you can get their number pretty easily. Whereas Ring Central is not going to integrate with Outlook. It's not going to pull your contacts in. It's not going to be available generally through your Office 365 package.
Well, that's something else that we've talked about too. Is you notice, especially if you deal with some smaller clients, people going way of Office 365 and tying up with their email, website, all that phone system now, all into this package that Microsoft's offering.
One-stop shop. Microsoft is turning into Walmart.
Well, I think it's interesting that, years ago, Microsoft was the ultimate, they were in a position of power. They kind of lost a little bit of that power, to Apple and to some other places, but now they're making a comeback again, back into that position of power with this whole Office 365 and Windows 10 and all that. It seems like nobody, they get knocked off their high horse for a while, but they get back on there eventually.
Well, yeah, eventually they got back on, and they had to basically Microsoft looks like they had to rethink their operations. It used to be Microsoft was only concerned with enterprise clients. They could care less about the home user and the small business user. That hurt them. That hurt them big time with Linux getting easier to use, prices. So they had to rethink their entire operation and started to focus more on small, well, I shouldn't say more on, but put equal effort into small to medium businesses.
Well, they also struggled there with a tough management, I think, under the Balmer administration, who took over for Gates.
Yes, it's true. He didn't make some very popular decisions. He's the one responsible for Windows Vista. We don't know how well that worked out.
Yeah, it was ME2. We all remember how horrible Windows Me was.
Mistake edition.
Mistake edition, yes. What now? The other thing we're talking about security. We had talked about in our pre-show discussion. You want to talk about the Dell hack? Why don't you go ahead and talk about it and and let's let us know what's going on there.
So it's recently been coming up to the security world, but something happened at Dell. Nobody's quite sure exactly what. People started getting phone calls from somebody claiming to be from Dell, and they knew what the service tag was of the computer. For those of you who have had Dells over the years, anytime you have to call in for Dell support, they always ask for the service tag. It's a number on the computer that identifies your machine to you. They had that information. So you would have somebody with a foreign accent calling up, claiming to be from Dell or Microsoft, stating there's a problem with your computer. The average person would say, okay, well, what makes you think there's a problem with my computer? Well, sir, ma'am, do you still have computer A16410X? Oh, yeah, that is my service tag. well, you see, sir, ma'am, there's viruses coming from this machine. We need to get into your machine to fix this. At that point, if you let them in, they can be installing malware, ransomware, stealing your information, whatever. They're not legitimately from Microsoft. They're not legitimately, well, we don't know that they're not legitimately from Dell. Something definitely happened with Dell. Dell hasn't acknowledged what yet, but it's kind of something people need to be made aware of. If you get calls claiming to be from Dell or Microsoft, you did not call Dell or Microsoft, you're not expecting a call from Dell or Microsoft, chances are it's not a legitimate call. Hang up. If they continue to call, block the number. Maybe even report it to local authorities, at least so they're aware of it. If you do make the mistake of giving them any kind of access to your systems, see an IT provider of some sort, get your system checked out, go to your bank, if you do banking on your computer, make sure that your accounts are secure, maybe even change your passwords. It's not pretty, and unfortunately right now we're not sure the extent of this breach. Obviously, they will sound pretty convincing. They will do everything in their power to convince you they are Dell or Microsoft, and this is a legitimate call, especially having that service tag.
Well, and we've seen these types of attacks before, phishing attacks, but this one, in my opinion, really hits home because normally they always call, we've had a lot of people over the years say, oh, Microsoft called me, and we know that happens and all that, but this one is really convincing because they have a service tag number.
Right. They know who you are. They know your computer. They know it's generally how your computer came out of the box. So if your computer had Windows 8.1 on it and you had 8 gigs of RAM and Pentium 4 processor, i7, they know all this from that service tag number. If only information they had was the service tags, they were able to find all this information out. Dell lists all that publicly, which makes them sound more convincing.
Well, the other thing too, Howard, is now that Dell isn't a public company anymore, they don't have to disclose everything like they used to either. That's another issue about this.
That's correct. That's scary when you think about it. They don't have to tell you they were hacked. They don't have to tell you how bad the hack was. It's only coming to light because people have been talking about it.
Well, right, because they're not a publicly traded entity anymore. They were taken private about a year ago. They don't have to report it anymore, which is kind of scary.
Correct. Very scary. And it makes you wonder how many other issues are out there that they don't tell you about.
Now, speaking of security, I want to jump into the topic of firewalls because I know you're very much an expert on those. What do you recommend for business? What do you recommend for the home user? What is the safest firewall out there that you would think?
I can't tell you what the safest firewall is. I can tell you from the standpoint of an IT manager, the standpoint of an IT technician, I want something that's going to be relatively easy to figure out how to use. I want something that can be secure for a business, and I want something that can do what I need it to do. So again, we talked about segmenting the networks. I want a firewall capable of doing that. Your $200 Netgear that you buy at Best Buy, the wonderful Nighthawk, yes, it's powerful. Yes, it does quite a bit. Yes, you can have multiple wireless networks, but unfortunately, it's not providing you with any security. It's a nice barrier between you and the internet. That's great, but it's not truly securing you. You want something that can maybe provide antivirus at the gateway level. You want something that can possibly do content filtering. And for that, you need something more like an appliance. Personally, I like SonicWalls. That's a personal opinion. I don't work for Dell. I don't own any shares of Dell. I like SonicWalls because they're simple to configure.
Yes, just when you're listening to this podcast, if you're going to buy a SonicWall, it's the promo code. Just put in H Magnes. No, I'm just kidding.
If that works, let me know how much you save. That would love one at home. But no, I like SonicWalls just because they're easy to figure out from the IT standpoint. I don't have to spend 6 hours sitting there trying to configure VLANs like I might with Cisco. It saves time for me. It saves time for the customer. It makes you look better. And the nice thing about SonicWalls, you can upscale them. You can buy the basic model for $500-600. Okay, it's a firewall. It's secure. You can add licensing to it that gets you content filtering and gateway antivirus, which is always nice. You can VPN a couple of them together. The most I personally have done is 3 together, but I've heard it can do up to 25, possibly more with the higher ends, which is always nice if you have an office in a remote location. Then you can share files. But again, the Sonic being easy to configure, I can go in there and add VLANs. The average Sonic wall has at least 4 ports. I can make each one of them a different network. And I can do that. I can have that entire Sonic wall working for you in about an hour's time.
Well, and you brought up a good point. Two good points that I want to talk about. One of the things you said about was segmenting the wireless. The majority of people, and I notice this even at businesses, you come in, they give you their password, you get on their Wi-Fi. There's no guest wireless, there's no nothing. You're just on their main wireless. People don't segment a lot of times. Very bad decision.
Correct. Let somebody on the wireless. It's on the same network as everything else. They've compromised your network. They can sit there with the packet sniffer, watch your traffic. They can try to hack away at your servers. They can port scan your servers. Yeah. Generally, in the compliance worlds of PCI, wireless has to either be locked down or put on a whole different network if you're taking credit cards, unless it's deemed critical to your environment. So if you're using something like Square that relies on Wi-Fi or cellular, okay, fine. But unless if you're using cash registers or point-of-sale machines, you generally do not want Wi-Fi in that network.
Now, I mean, and nowadays, I mean, most of even your home routers come with 2 VLANs, one for guests, one for personal use.
Right. You can set up a guest Wi-Fi. It limits them to a degree, but it's not a true VLAN. It's not truly segmented.
Correct. Now, the other thing you talked about too, and I think is very important, is
ignoring this call because it's more important. Go on.
The other thing you talk about is searching your banking and all that kind of stuff. And this is something I'm really surprised at. Is banks still? Yes, they have an SSL. Certificate set up and all that, but you don't hear anybody really doing their banking over VPN yet, which would be like your safest way to do banking.
Oh yeah, the bank's not offering a VPN into their site. You're connecting through the front end. I don't see that happening anytime soon. I see some sort of biometric encryption replacing the whole login, whether it be retina scan, fingerprint, something. I know a while back they said fingerprint could be broken. It's very complicated, and you get one shot at it trying to lift it off a glass. As we've all seen, when everybody made the big yellow, somebody was able to steal a fingerprint and unlock an Apple iPhone. Well, the part they didn't advertise was, well, it took 6 tries to get the fingerprint. In testing, because you get one shot each time. Yeah. After you try to lift it, it's gone. So fingerprints or possibly retina scan, some sort of thing might eventually replace logging into an SSL site.
Well, I know, like myself, like, and I guess I'm more of a technical user than most, and as you are as well. But like I know, like for me, like I refuse to go into like a Starbucks, fire up my, hook up my to the Wi-Fi, and do anything with like banking. I mean, checking your Facebook and stuff is one thing, but like doing your banking over a public Wi-Fi is just not safe. But yet you see people doing it all the time.
Right. There are VPN companies out there that will allow you to create a secure VPN. So that if you're on these wonderful public Wi-Fi networks, you can at least encrypt your traffic. I don't recommend doing anything important at a Starbucks. It's kind of like the last ditch. I need internet to get to work. I have no choice in the matter. I'll go to Starbucks. You're kind of better off getting a cellular modem from one of the cell providers, AT&T, Verizon, whoever. At least that's my opinion of it.
Well, right, but yet, like I said, you see so many people on there, sitting there checking their accounts, and it's like, right. This is, I can sit here with a sniffer and just sniff your traffic. I mean, it's all wide open at a place like that.
Right, but they don't know that. They don't understand that. They don't want to understand that. They want to be able to get access to their insert item here. They don't understand that this is not secure. They don't realize it. They say, "Oh, good, I can get on the internet here, and everything is hunky dory. I'm okay." They don't have clue one that it's wide open. Everybody can see what they're doing.
Well, the other problem is too, and I know you'll agree with me on this, because I know we both have the same views on security. We don't trust anything, no matter how secure it is. Is a lot of people, they keep Windows up to date, but they don't update Java, they don't update Flash, they don't update Adobe Reader. And I mean, you're surfing the web. I mean, how many times has Java been exploited? I mean, that's for a while there. It was like every week.
Java's got an update every day, if not every other day.
Yeah, I mean,
trying to keep up with Java is a little difficult, but I've been reading, and they're saying now the number one security flaw is an old version of Apple software, whether it be iTunes or QuickTime. People think, oh, I installed the Apple software, my phone works. I don't need to update it. They don't understand that Apple has released fixes for it, security updates. They don't understand that their phone even needs updates, and you have people fighting you on it.
Well, Howard, a lot of people don't think of this too. People are still stuck in that old mindset of, Apples don't get viruses. We know Apple can get viruses. They're making antivirus now for the Apple and stuff because it does happen.
It does happen. It's harder to get a virus on a Mac, but not impossible. And as
Correct.
we recently saw, they're starting to break down Apple security.
Well, the thing was, Microsoft was the biggest dog in the fight, so everybody kind of attacked them. And a lot of people understand too is on a Windows machine, you always run as administrator. On Apple to install stuff, you have to actually elevate yourself, so it does make you less susceptible. But again, it's still the threat is still there.
Absolutely. User access control on Windows was supposed to mitigate some of that. Unfortunately, people turn user access control off because it interferes with their day-to-day life. Apple, you can't turn it off. But there are companies out there that have proven that it can be bypassed using different security. Recently, Apple patched a security hole in their I'm not 100% sure on this, with their gateway protection, and then it got broken again. So hackers are now coming after it. I read an article, I think it was yesterday, that more iPhones were sold in the last quarter than Android in the last year. Being that Apple uses one OS across the board, makes Apple the new target, the new kid on the block to go attack.
Well, the other thing is too, as they've gained more market share, they become more of a target. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. When you start becoming the bigger dog in the fight, you start, becoming, a bigger target.
Absolutely. They say once you get 10% of the market share, you start getting on the radar.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people say, well, everything's going mobile, but I mean, there's still a lot of PCs out there. I mean, especially when Microsoft's raving that they just had 200 million activations so far of Windows. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we're going mobile, but I mean, there's still a lot of PCs out there yet.
The mobile is a supplementary device. The PC's not going away. The PC's role may change. Like, you in the field may not carry a laptop anymore. If you're a sales guy, you might carry a tablet or an iPhone. When you come back to work at the office and do your paperwork, you're not going to be able to do that. For the most part. And I say for the most part because Microsoft Surface does have a keyboard, but it's not going to be as fast as a laptop. It's not going to be as fast as a desktop.
But you know what I think is interesting though, Howard, about that is, we're talking about that. I have a Surface myself. And, one of the things I think that's really nice is the Surface, it's a multi-purpose device. So whether I'm on the road or I'm sitting here typing up a document, I have everything on one device. Now, Apple is starting to chip away with that with the iPad Pro now because they're realizing, it's either one, people, they want one or the other, but now some people want both.
Yeah, some people do want both, and it's nice. But at the end of the day, it's a lot harder to run a CRM app that's client-based on a tablet than it is to run it on a PC or laptop. again, the mobile devices are great. I've got tablets. I've got phones. I've got laptops. Everything depends on what you're doing. Dealing with sales guys, they'll go out in the field. They might carry a laptop with them. They definitely carry a phone with them. Then they do what they can in the field. When they come back, they use their PC to update the database, the CRM database.
Now you
It's
are
faster.
seeing though, you are seeing a lot of service guys though, carrying tablets now,
Yes.
with them rather than laptops. I do notice that quite a bit.
Yes. Depends on what you're coming out the service. Yes, I can see that. When I go out to sites for Wi-Fi, I bring a tablet with me. Setting up the Wi-Fi, measuring Wi-Fi signal strength. I do all that with the tablet. The laptop is to plug in if I need to. Most of the time, if I go on a site for Wi-Fi issues, the laptop stays in the bag unless I have to pull down the access point to reconfigure it.
So, Howard, we have a question in the chat room. I guess somebody's watching us live. They want to know Office 365, Google Docs. Your opinion?
Oh, get asked this a lot. Personally, having used both, I like Office 365 a little better. It's the familiar Word interface that everybody has. It's all my apps. I don't have to relearn anything that I already knew. I find Google to be a little more cumbersome. The nice thing about Office 365 is I can have that on my laptop. I can have that on my iPhone. When you buy the Office 365 packages, Microsoft gives you a terabyte of storage in their OneDrive to store all your files. I don't believe Google's giving you a terabyte. I believe it's 15 gigs of current, and I believe OneDrive to be a little more secure as far as things go. At least that's been my experiences with it. So my personal opinion is Office 365 over Google Docs.
You know, that's another thing too. You know, we've heard Dropbox hacks. We've heard quite a bit. Have we heard of an Office 365 or a Google Drive hack yet? I don't think so.
I haven't. Google Drive, I think, did get hacked and they patched it. I have not heard about OneDrive getting hacked.
Well, that's another thing too. I don't. A lot of people don't realize too is when they talk about the storage, the price of it. One of the things I try to tell people all the time, everybody says, "Oh, I can get a terabyte drive for $70 at Walmart," and they're like, "Why is Microsoft getting, whatever it costs, $50, $75 a year?" And I said, "But you're looking at one drive. You're paying for Microsoft to basically make sure that data is not only secured, but isn't going to get lost. I mean, they're saving." Not just to one drive, they're spreading it across their entire, data storage network. A lot of people don't realize that. That's part of what you're paying for.
Right. They have data centers the size of football fields out there. It's crazy. And that data, if you're a business customer, they can take that data that you stored in, let's say, OneDrive for Business. They could have it stored, let's say, at a data center in New York, and also stored in the data center in Los Angeles, so that there's always redundancy. So if one data center goes down, you still have access to your stuff. The nice thing about OneDrive over somebody, I can buy the hard drive for $60. What do you do when that hard drive fails? Your data's gone. Microsoft is probably, I'm going to say probably, not going to fail anytime soon.
Well, they're also striping the data too over multiple hard drives. They're not just using one individual drive.
Right. It's mirrored over probably several drives. The chances of Microsoft losing your data are pretty slim. I imagine it could happen, but it's pretty slim.
Well, also too, Microsoft's backing it up. How often do you back up that drive? There's a lot of reasons why you're paying that price too.
Correct. And don't forget, when you buy the terabyte package from Microsoft, they give you Office. Or if you buy Office, they give you OneDrive.
So I didn't know that. So you can't just buy OneDrive separately then?
You can. But when you buy the 1 terabyte drive, the 1 terabyte of storage, they give you Microsoft Office as part of the package.
Howard, somebody in the chat room, in the Pal Talk room, wants to know, can you explain the difference between OneDrive and OneDrive for Business?
They're higher level security, integration. OneDrive for Business won't agree with Exchange. Don't agree with your existing everything. If you go to the web-based version of your Exchange, there are tabs on top, boxes. It's one place to get everything. OneDrive is the home version. OneDrive for Business is the commercial version. That's pretty much it. Other than the fact that I believe Microsoft has scaled down the home version a bit. They may give you 5 licenses, but it's only 1 terabyte of storage that you get. Whereas when you buy OneDrive for Business and you buy Office 365, all your users get a terabyte. So let's say you buy 10 licenses, you just bought 10 terabytes of storage space.
So somebody's asking, OneDrive in favor of, this is all they wrote, OneDrive in favor of file servers. So I guess they're asking, is OneDrive, I guess, better than
OneDrive can replace a file server. It's not going to be quite as fast because you have to deal with the fact that you're going over the commodity of the internet to get your connection to your stuff, but you would have access to it anywhere. OneDrive has basically replaced SharePoint.
Well, now wait a minute. I want to point on one thing too. Is if file share, if you keep, if you have 10 people in the office, you can use, the file server to share. If you're using OneDrive, you're going to need 10 licenses.
Not necessarily. I can share without giving you a license. Like that document I sent you earlier that you have in your show notes with the diagram. You didn't get a license from me for that. I shared that document out with you.
Okay. Okay. I get what you mean. Right. Okay. That's
so
right.
I can do that without assigning a license.
So you're saying that OneDrive is really more of a replacement for SharePoint than it is anything else?
Correct. It would be supplemental to a file server, but if you're dealing with multiple people, you need access to things, especially if you have people who are working outside the physical office. That's where OneDrive would come in.
Well, the other thing too, and you pointed out a good thing with SharePoint, as much as you and I both aren't huge SharePoint fans, one of the things that is really the real big seller, I think, for a business that already has SharePoint is, you're going to put it up on 365. There's a lot of hardware needed to run a SharePoint server. Even the SharePoint for small business is a couple server investment. With 365, obviously, you're alleviating all that cost, dealing with hosting it and all that stuff in your own data center or commercially, whatever you're going to do.
Correct. So if you wanted to host, say, a virtual SharePoint server out in the cloud, you're probably looking at a couple $100 a month versus whatever Microsoft is charging per user. I think the basic Microsoft E3 package is somewhere around $15 to $20 a user per month. So it's a no-brainer to use something like this if you need access to your stuff remotely.
Howard, another question from the chat room. I know we're getting towards 8 o'clock, but one more question for the chat room, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Somebody had asked, is there a difference between Office 365 and Microsoft cloud-hosted services? And I think that's a good question.
Well, yeah. Cloud-hosted services, the Azure, as they call it, that's your servers. That's your file server in the cloud, your SharePoint, your Exchange, your virtual domain. Theoretically, if you had the money and you can afford it every month, you could duplicate your entire environment out there. And where this comes in is, say you're an accounting company, like an H&R Block, and you're busy between January and April. The rest of the year, you really don't do much. So you don't want to spend the money, on several servers. So let's say a place like H&R Block has offices, let's say one per county, times how many counties in the state, times how many, 50 states in the country. So that's a lot of people. That's a lot of offices. That's a lot of computing power. Now, the question for an H&R Block would be, do I buy enough servers to handle all this, or do I rent them? Fire up some VMs, some SQL servers, the back end, and have my stuff connect to them, and then when I'm done, shut them off. So that's the nice thing about the Azure service. With Office 365, it would be your everyday usage stuff. That'd be your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoints, OneDrive.
Well, they do have SharePoint in the cloud, but it's nowhere near the capacity of what you're talking cloud services.
Correct. They do have a SharePoint in the cloud, and that can be as big as you want it. It's going to get expensive to run SharePoint. A lot more expensive than running OneDrive.
I think the majority of people could probably get away with just what this SharePoint that comes with 365 for Business. I mean, I think it's multiple sites and stuff. I think it's pretty decent.
I believe it handles, I want to say 25 gigs max for the SharePoint that comes with Office 365. If you want anything more, you have to go to full-blown SharePoint or use OneDrive.
Well, you really are an expert in this whole Microsoft services piece.
I've been, unfortunately, living in Microsoft land lately, so I kind of have to be.
Now, let me ask you a question, though. It's something I know a lot of people are curious now. Azure, obviously, you could have an on-site Active Directory, and Azure would be your go-between. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the on-site Active Directory anymore, if I'm correct, right? You can have it all right in Azure, correct?
You could have it right in Azure. The only issue I would see with something like that is what happens when your cable modem goes down or your DSL modem goes down. Authentication would drop. You're still better off having something, whether it be a read-only domain controller on site, some sort of domain controller on site, and then have the rest of your environment be out in the cloud. At least you wouldn't be down.
I got somebody else has asked a question. I know I said one more, but this will get to be the last one because I know you have Friday night's a good night for television. One of the questions somebody asked was, if you're using Azure up in the cloud, is that in addition to 365? Yes. I don't know. I don't believe it comes with it, 365.
No, it does not come with 365. It's additional costs. I don't know the costs of it. Whether you go through Microsoft or Rackspace to do it, Azure is a definite extra expense. And everything depends on what kind of server you're looking for. It's based on compute power.
Yeah, and I do want to point out too. I do want to point out real quickly. Some of the stuff with Office 365 that you'd buy for a home user is different than Office 365 for business. I just want to point that out to everybody.
Yeah, different packages, different items, different support levels.
I didn't know that.
When you buy Office 365 for business and you run into a problem deploying it, you can actually call somebody, not get charged. Whereas the home user gets charged.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, usually the way it works is you call whoever you bought it from, and if there's problems with it, they'll help you, or they'll call Microsoft. They get to call Microsoft, whereas the home user is kind of stuck.
That sounds like That sounds like a learn by fire kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That sounds like something you learn when you're in a situation. So, Howard, I want to let you go. I know we've been on for about an hour. I know you got Friday night's a good television night. I know.
A lot of things I still have to do yet tonight. So it's been good talking to you, and thank you for having me on the show.
No problem, Howard. Just where can everybody find you? Facebook, Twitter.
I am on Facebook, Twitter at Servos Computer D. Facebook, I'm definitely on. LinkedIn, if they have questions, they're welcome to contact me through those sources, and I'll do my best to get back to them.
Howard, well, thank you very much for being on the program today, and have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.
All right, you too. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.